The door panels are relatively simple because there's only one driver in the door, and that's the 6 3/4 inch mid-bass driver. And just to carry the theme from the rest of the vehicle over, the trim ring around the mid-bass driver was also milled out of high-density foam and carries the same theme that the rear subwoofers do. For the front mid-range and tweeter, I decided to use another vacuum formed piece to house the mids and the tweeters. Now the mid-range needs a specific sized enclosure in order to play properly, and so I decided to combine the two by creating a mid and tweet housing also out of styrene. But the original mold and the shape is created using simple MDF pucks. These pucks were housed in a lathe and then ground to the contour that I was looking for using a die grinder and the lathe, and that gives us the the side profile contour roughly, and then from there just smooth down with 80 grit sandpaper, and then maybe finished up with 150 grit sandpaper. If you look closely, these pucks were resined. It's actually 2 pucks of 3/4 inch MDF glued together. This additional puck was glued on later just to give it an additional clearance for the mid-range speaker. And if you can see, they're not the same height. This one's actually 1/4 inch taller, just to give it a little bit different look in space. The pucks, after I finished sanding it, were resin, and what that does is it allows you to pull the molds off of it without the MDF separating. So I resined the piece just to get a little bit extra strength, and then sanded it smooth with probably 220 grit sandpaper. And then I made a little bridge between the two, because if you notice, there's no wires visible on the pod, and so what that does is gives the tweeter wire passage. And so similar to the styrene trim pieces in the trunk, I created a housing using styrene, because styrene is probably one of the most pliable materials when it comes to vacuum forming. But I use a thicker material, about an 1/8 inch thick material, so that you have enough rigidity after the vacuum forming process that the speaker housing wouldn't resonate. Pulled these molds off pretty easily. Heat up the styrene in the same way. You can use a heat gun, or we have a infrared heating area, so that allows you to heat the styrene, and it sucks right over the shape. And then using the same technique, I trimmed the styrene with a router bit and a bearing, and that allows you to have a really clean edge. Another cool aspect of the tweeter pod, relatively cool aspect, is that you don't see the wires, because the mounting bolt is a custom threaded 1/2 inch rod with a washer. So I created my own bolt with a 1/4 inch passage, so even after you tighten the bolt in place, the wires can run through the bolt, and makes it so you can have no wires. For the trim ring, it's a trim and a mounting ring. So what all I did was take a copy of the outer flange, and then in order to give it a little bit extra shape, I just wrapped fine line, 1/4 inch fine line tape around it 10 times to give it a little extra thickness. So when the mold, or when the trim piece is finished, it has a little bit of an extra lip around the outer edge, so it's not flush.